So, hello everyone, and welcome to How to Fall in Love, Facing Your Fears and Changing Your Patterns. So, thank you for joining me. I know, it's a big ask you to give up an hour of your time, and on a Sunday. I don't normally work Sundays, but I'm trying to do these webinars at times where different people can join at least one. So, I decided to do one on a Sunday. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about how this is going to work. As I've said in some of my posts to you and on social media, that this is game-changing work. Now that might sound like an ambitious statement, but I believe it to be true. I believe that by exploring our fears and identifying and then changing and challenging our patterns, amazing things can happen. They certainly have to me and to many of my clients. So in this webinar, I'm going to talk you through some of the patterns that many of us fall into. And if you have a notebook and pen, I'm going to ask you to do some of your own exploration. We're going to look at our fears and where our fears come from, which is crucial. And we're going to look at how our fears and our patterns are connected. So how our fears drive our patterns. And then we're going to look at some solutions. In terms of timing, I'm going to be talking for about 40 minutes, but during any of that, you are welcome to put something in the chat or unmute yourself, ask a question, stop me if you don't understand anything. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the ways you could work with me, or some of the things that I have on offer in the next few months. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that, and then we're going to have question and answer. Now, at any point, you are welcome to leave, of course, but after the question and answer, if you don't want to hear any more about my programs, about the things that I've got going on in the next few months, then you are very welcome to leave. Those of you who'd like to find out a bit more about things that I've got going on and who'd like to book a discovery call with me, so a free call, 30-minute call to explore your fears and challenges and patterns, then I'll give that information at the end. So that's how we're going to work. The content, then a tiny bit about what I've got on offer, Q&A, and then I'll talk you, those of you who want to stay, I'll talk you through some of my programs in more detail. And just a reminder that I have got another webinar. I'm gone webinar mad in January. My words for 2020 are stretch and share. So stretch is stretch my body and stretch myself, move out of my comfort zone, and share. So share what I know in whatever form I can share it. So I've gone webinar mad with my sharing this month. So I've got one on Tuesday evening, which is not just about dating, love, and relationships. It is about all areas of our life. In fact, all my webinars are about all areas of our lives, because it's primarily about our relationship with ourselves and self-awareness. But specifically on Tuesday, we're talking about creating your 2020 vision and designing your dream decade. And on Thursday, I have another webinar in this love series, and that is change your dating dynamic. So you'll be on my list, you'll be on my mailing list, so I'll send you details of those. The 2020 vision comes with a workbook, so I'll tell you more about that at the end if you don't know about that. So firstly, I'd like just to ask you a question. So this is either to reflect on for a moment in silence, or to type into the chat, or to unmute yourself and tell me the answer. Let me just see, I've got, have I got somebody? Happy New Year. Yeah. So I'm just going to send a question your way. So how important is this area of love, dating, and relationships to you right now in January 2020? So how much of a priority is it for you to have a healthy and loving relationship? On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd love to know where this sits in terms of your priorities. So have a think. I often encourage us, in order to get our true answers, I often encourage us to put a hand, connect with ourselves. So to place a hand on your heart, on your chest, I sort of go in between the two, perhaps on your stomach, which is where I often say that we connect our intuition, our gut feeling, or it could be somewhere else, but place a hand somewhere, connect with yourself and your truth. So how important is it to me to have a healthy and loving relationship? Where does this issue lie in your list of priorities in 2020? So yeah, type in the box if you have an answer. So someone says 7, but they need to do some preparation first. So that's part of this. That's part of this journey. If you saw my previous webinar on healthy foundations, and if you didn't, I'll send you the link. That is part of the preparation work. So does anyone else have any thoughts? Type it in the chat or say it out loud. Where does this lie on your priority list in 2020, in January 2020? We have a 9. Okay. Thank you. We have an 8. So it's pretty high up there. Anyone else want to share we have a 5. Okay, so some other priorities going on. So half and half. Lots of other priorities. We all have priorities in our lives. We have work, we have family commitments, we have our health and our well-being, all those things. We have a 6, but need time to prioritize. And we have, trying to be happy with myself first, which is harder. And absolutely. And, you know, if you don't know me, that's some of the work we're going to be doing on this webinar. And that's the work that I do. It's all about being happy with ourselves. So if I just tell you a little bit about my story, and some of you know it already, so I'll be brief. But I'd say in my early 40s, I'm 48 now, in my early 40s, this was a big priority for me. I'd had a massive career, massive in the sense of, you know, pretty high profile. I was a foreign correspondent. I worked for Reuters. I worked in Parliament. I flew around with the Prime Minister. So my career, I kind of feel like I'd hit the top. Like I'd done all that I had dreamt of doing, really, and that in my journalism career. And I broke down and I burnt out, and then I had to reevaluate. But in my early 40s, the career had taken not a complete backseat, but I was a bit lost and wasn't sure where I was going. But the idea of having a healthy and loving relationship was up there. It was really, you know, I'd say for me, it was a 9. I was entirely frustrated with my patterns, with the way things were going. I was frustrated with my relationships all ending. I was frustrated with the fact that I kept falling for unavailable people, for men who wouldn't commit to me, who were addicted to alcohol or their work, or they lived on a different continent. I kept judging and criticizing and avoiding the suitable men who wanted to be with me, who wanted to love me. So I couldn't understand where I was going wrong, and this really was a priority for me. I made it a priority, and, you know, it started with my relationship with myself. Obviously, that is the most important thing. It started with learning to love myself, change my relationship patterns, the way I related to myself, to stop self-harming and self-sabotaging. I had to change all that. And I also had to understand why I kept getting into these patterns. Why did all my relationships follow the same pattern? And I understood that I was the common denominator in all those relationships. All those failed relationships, I was the common denominator. I was very good at blaming the guys, but actually I was always there. I was the common denominator. And I say that not to shame myself or give myself a hard time, but because I really needed to wake up. I needed more awareness. So, and then I had to look at my fears. I had to look at the fears that were driving my relationship patterns. And these fears, you know, they're deep rooted, and they don't only relate to our love life. You know, my fears about life, fear of success, fear of failure, fear of being judged, fear of being hurt, all those fears, they hugely affect my life. They affect my career, they affect how I relate to people, not just in romantic relationships. They affect how much I love and take care of myself. So I had to dig deep and understand my fears. And then once I knew those fears, I could start to change them. And as some of you know, I've had a lot of change in the last, just going to grab something, in the last years. So, I really dedicated myself. I made this a priority, and I really dedicated myself to this work. And, I changed my career, I changed my life, I moved to the seaside, I grew a coaching practice, I wrote a book, How to Fall in Love, a 10-step journey to the heart. But most importantly, because it was a priority, I dated successfully for once, and I fell in love, and I got engaged, and I got married. So understanding my fears and changing my patterns had a radical impact on my life. And it was game-changing. So I'm just going to share my screen. You can still see me in the top corner. Get rid of that. And then make this big. So this is, just to recap, this is why it's game-changing work. So getting to know myself, to understand myself, to love and care for myself, meant that I understood that I was in the wrong job. That job had burnt me out and broken me down, and it wasn't fulfilling me anymore. I didn't want to live in London anymore. As much as I love London, I wanted to live by the sea, and by honoring myself and my dreams, I could do that. I always wanted to be a writer, and I spent 20 years in professional journalism. So I was doing a lot of writing, but I wasn't writing from the heart. So I started blogging, and I published my book. Some of the major patterns that I have changed in the past 17 years I've been doing my personal development work. I stopped binge eating. Binge eating was a huge coping mechanism for me ever since I was a small girl. I stopped binge drinking, again, a way I used to cope, to feel more confident. If you have any trouble with binge eating or binge drinking or any of those behaviors, do get in touch, because I have some programs that can help with that. Specifically relevant to this webinar, I ended a cycle of dead-end and dysfunctional relationships. I got engaged. I fell in love. I bought this house with my partner. I got engaged, and I got married in June 2019. And most importantly, I rediscovered my true self. Now, that is not to say that I am sorted, that I have got it all sussed, that I am perfect. I am still prone to the crazy making behaviors that I've had for much of my life, only they don't sabotage my relationships anymore. I have learned to manage my emotions within my relationship. So my relationship, my marriage is really strong. But my behaviors still affect other areas of my life. I'm still an overworker. I still have to really take care of myself in relation to work. I have, my mood can swing, so I really have to take care of myself around my mood. So, things aren't perfect, but considering where I was in my early 40s, so lost, lonely, living in a tiny flat in London, unsure of where I was going with my career, single, with a whole bank of failed relationships there behind me, and wondering where on earth I was going wrong. And considering where I was, and now, 6 years later, so much has changed. So this is game-changing work, and I just want to show you. Oh, why doesn't that? How do I do that? No, I press there. There you go. I just want to show you a picture, happy picture of me on my wedding day, June 2019. So, you know, I could never have imagined that I would be in that position, you know, single into my 40s, so many failed relationships, and not knowing where I was going wrong. I made it my job to find out where I was going wrong. And I did a really thorough piece of work on that because I'm a real thorough person. I'm a real overworker. And I sorted it out. And I am now sharing this with you because, you know, it's really important to me. Not only is it important that I help other people change their lives if that's what they want to do, but in order to keep what I have got, I feel like I need to give it away. So, you know, I go on lots of webinars, primarily of business coaches, and they all say, I'm so excited. And if they're American, they say, I'm so excited to be on this webinar. Sorry, excuse my accent for any Americans on the call. But, you know, Americans tend to be a lot more excited than us Brits. But I am really excited to bring you this webinar because, and not just because, you know, often I go on a webinar and I think, what are they going to sell me? What are they going to try and sell me? And, you know, obviously I have some wonderful programs that I'd like to share with you, but I am here because I want to share this information with you, this game-changing information. So let me just check my notes. Yeah, so I'm just going to move on to the next bit. Yeah, game-changing work. So I've explained how I have changed my life and my relationship, and this is you know, this is to show you that other people, that there is hope, because a lot of women and men who come to work with me, they kind of run out of hope. They've tried lots of things, they're wondering why things aren't working for them. So to give you some hope, these are some of the clients that I've worked with. So Phoebe, who has done my How to Fall in Love course, which I'll explain about a little bit later. It's a wonderful group course. She has said that I'm now starting to imagine a future for myself with a truly amazing, fun and secure person, which I had never thought possible or experienced. So Phoebe is getting married this year. When she first approached me, she had no clue how that would ever happen. She wasn't in a relationship. She had, you know, a history of not being in relationships. And then Kate, I finally dared to fully embrace and love myself and to believe that I'm worthy of being loved. Not long after that, I entered into a new relationship. Suddenly, love came naturally to me. Kate is living with her partner now and has been for a while successfully. Bryony, who did my How to Fall in Love course just a few months ago, she's in her 40s. It's felt like a really wonderful, positive experience. I definitely feel a shift. I've become more aware of my patterns and the way I've behaved in the past, and the way I expect to be treated by men has changed. And Bryony is in a relationship. And Gemma, I feel like I'm in an entirely different place to where I was a month ago, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Gemma is also in a relationship. So there are 4 people who came to me not in a relationship who are now in a relationship, one of whom is getting married. Now, I can't take full credit, of course. These women, you know, intelligent women, they have lots of support, but, you know, they did my How to Fall in Love course, or they've done coaching with me, and I'm delighted to say things have changed for them. So over to you. We are going to look at your patterns and your fears, and we're going to start with patterns. And I would like you, on your notebook that I hope you have nearby, I would like you to put 2 columns down the page. So you could hold it horizontally like this, and down the middle you could put patterns, and there you could put fears, or you could do it on one page and the other page because you might want to write quite a lot. But I'd just like you to put 2 headings on your paper: patterns and fears. And we're going to look at patterns first. So I'm going to just ask you off the top of your head to take a moment and to think about some of your relationship patterns. I'm going to talk about some common ones in a moment, but I'd like you to think about some of your relationship patterns. So if you would like to share them with me, I'd like you to pop them, oops, sorry. there's some clues. I'd like you to pop them in the chat, either privately to me or publicly. Now, if you type them privately, I will read them out, but I won't read your name. So if you can think of any relationship patterns that you tend to follow, I'm going to give you a few minutes to write them down, either on your paper, in your notebook, or in the box here, or both. What are your relationship patterns? Obviously here we're talking about the patterns that we don't like, that aren't serving us, that might be self-sabotaging, that might be harmful to us. Can you think of any patterns? You might want to connect with yourself. You might want to close your eyes and think back through your history. What are my relationship patterns? You might want to start by thinking about the times when you felt hurt, sad, rejected, lost, lonely. What have the patterns been? That's interesting. So there's a few patterns people have shared. Thank you very much. Holding back and keeping a partner at a distance. Thank you. Yeah, I certainly know that one. Choosing people who need looking after and then resenting it. Choosing people who are anxious or avoidant, and this triggers anxiety. So you need to, thank you for that. If you're trying to type, somebody's trying to type on the screen, I think. So if you're, or am I? Maybe I am, sorry. Anyway, yeah, type in the chat box. Choose people who need looking after and then I resent it. Choose people who are anxious or avoidant and this triggers my anxiety. Okay. Feeling too needy with people who are emotionally unavailable. Worrying that you're not good enough. Worrying that you are upsetting people. Choosing people who are emotionally unavailable, or perhaps being emotionally unavailable yourself. There are two sides to that coin, the people we choose and how available we are ourselves. Being too accepting and wanting to present an ideal. So accepting things that aren't acceptable, I know that one, accepting the unacceptable, and wanting to present a false self, a perfect self. Rejecting people once they get too close. Okay. So thank you for those. We've got things about feeling not good enough, feeling too needy, putting up walls so that we don't get hurt. So this is something you can continue doing, excuse me, after this webinar. You know, you might want to carry on reflecting, and you might want to think about some more patterns that you follow. But let's just focus on your top 3 and write them down on your paper. Hiding your true self. Yeah, hiding your true self, that ties in with not feeling good enough. Okay. So I'm just going to share a few here. Put that to the side. So these are some of my patterns that I had for decades. Always drawn to unavailable men or to commitment phobes. So when I say unavailable, that was often, you know, there are many forms of unavailability and it looks different in different people. So there's obvious unavailability. So being attracted to people who are already in a relationship with someone else. That was definitely one of my patterns. So they might be partnered up, they might be married, being attracted to men who are physically unavailable because they don't live anywhere near me. They live in, you know, I had a boyfriend who lived in America while I lived in London. Now my now husband lived in Poole when I lived in London, but I had an intention to live by the sea and it's only 2 hours away. So I don't say don't date anyone who doesn't live around the corner, but being drawn to people with whom a relationship will never work out. So commitment phobes, You know, how do we spot a commitment phobe? Often they are flaky, they don't show up on time, they're not very good at setting the date. But, you know, on a deeper level, they are not able to show emotional intimacy. They are not able to commit. They might keep looking for something better. They'll keep looking for something better than you, or you will keep looking for somebody better than them. And in my book, I talk about, and in my How to Fall in Love course, actually, we do a lot of work on a system called the ideal, the ordeal, and the real deal. So the ideal is when we fall in love and it's all amazing and we're on this pink cloud and this is great, you know. And then the ordeal is the bit where the relationship gets a bit icky and we need to negotiate boundaries and somebody's pushing our buttons and triggering us. And if we are a commitment phobe, we will just go and look for the ideal again. So we will end that relationship, think this is far too difficult, I'm going to go and find the ideal, and we'll go off, and then we'll get on our pink cloud again and it'll be amazing, and then we'll get to the ordeal and we won't be able to stick it out. And that was partly my story in some of my relationships. You know, I was afraid of commitment, so I kept going for the ideal, then I couldn't cope with the ordeal. Now, the ordeal doesn't sound much fun, and it doesn't have to be horrendous, but it is a process of boundary setting and negotiation and compromise and understanding what is it that we want out of a relationship. And if we can get through the ordeal, we get to the real deal, the real relationship, the real commitment, emotional intimacy. Now, I didn't know what that was before my marriage. It scared me. I thought I'd feel trapped. I thought I'd feel suffocated. I thought I'd be terrified of making the wrong choice. But, you know, being in an emotionally intimate relationship, you know, it's joy, lots of laughter, teamwork, partnership. So I can highly recommend it. But for me, it took some effort and some self-discovery work. So one of my patterns, always drawn to unavailable people or commitment phobes. Another one was rejecting suitable, emotionally healthy partners. So people who were willing and ready to be with me, they were the right age, maybe they lived nearby, they wanted to be with me, they were emotionally available, but I didn't like them. Often I would find them dull, boring, not edgy enough. I always wanted someone a bit edgy. Edgy often meant unavailable. So I'd find them, you know, nice guys were dull and boring and not interesting to me. Another pattern of mine was avoiding relationships through compulsively doing stuff. So in my case, compulsively working, you know, that my first career as an international journalist, you know, I worked across time zones. I worked late into the night. I did tons of travel, and there was no time for myself. There was no time for self-care. Therefore, there was no time for dating. So I escaped relationships. I avoided relationships through compulsively working. And when I wasn't working, I was compulsively doing. I was also compulsively exercising because I was trying to lose the weight that I had gained through compulsively overeating. So, you know, that's one of my patterns, avoiding. And, you know, if you relate to any of these, just put a yes. That's me too in the box, because, you know, it's good to know that we're not alone. So if this is you too, know that you're not alone and know that there is a solution. And that's the amazing thing. When we understand that we're not alone, and then we hear from people who've actually found a solution to these behaviors and these patterns, then we have hope. And hope is, you know, it's so much better to go dating and looking for a relationship with hope. Another thing was I experienced chronic indecision in relationships. So I kept thinking that this person wasn't right for me, there must be somebody else. I would judge, I would criticize. One minute I'd love them, the next minute I'd hate them. You know, this cycle of push, pull, which I wrote about in a blog I wrote for Psychology's magazine, actually, which has been my most read blog post of all the ones I've been writing there for years. So understanding the push-pull in relationships. I want you, I don't want you. I want you, I don't want you. So that was one of my patterns. And, you know, that comes from a place of being afraid of being in a relationship, being afraid of committing. So I'm just going to have a look. So yeah, another pattern, somebody has said, choosing from a place of inadequacy and feeling less than. So what I call that being chosen rather than choosing. So when we feel not good enough, when we don't value ourselves, when we don't believe in ourselves, we allow ourselves to be chosen by people who aren't right for us, or we choose people who aren't right for us. And then, you know, when we feel less than. So yeah, and we have a yes, 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 and someone who can relate to the overworking and, you know, using on work to distract ourselves primarily from our feelings, and then from the fear and of the terror often of actually being in a committed romantic relationship. And we're going to talk about our fears in a minute. Overwork, getting too tired to avoid dating or meeting new people. So what we are doing here is we are raising our awareness. And this is the most important thing. So you are all intelligent, self-aware human beings. We need to keep raising our awareness. So the more you do this work, the more you watch my webinars, read my book, come on my courses, or work with someone else, you know, the more you understand yourself. And that is the key. That is the key to changing. So these are our patterns, and you might want to carry on thinking about yours and thinking about any further patterns. So this is a whistle-stop tour through fears and patterns. You know, I have got lots more on these topics that you're welcome to explore with me, and I'll talk about a bit later. Okay, we're going to look at our fears actually, but I'm going to ask you to share some of yours first before I share some of mine. So we're going to move on to our fears. So just let's take a pause and perhaps, you know, center yourself again, ground yourself. Hand on heart, hand on chest, hand on tummy, and a few deep breaths. And I'd like you to dig deep and think about some of your fears. Think about some of your fears about being in a committed romantic relationship. And I'd like you to share those. I'd like you to share those in the chat, or write them down in your notebook, or both. So would anyone like to share any fears with me privately or with the group? So there's a fear that we'll upset the other person, that we'll upset a girlfriend or boyfriend, that the arguments mean it will be over. Fear of there being arguments and conflict. Gosh, I can so relate to that. I absolutely hated conflict. So I can really relate to that. Fear of confrontation. Yeah, conflict, confrontation, of not being liked. Fear of being rejected. Fear of abandonment, rejection and abandonment. Fear that I'll always be single, that I'm not good enough. Any more fears that you'd like to share? I'm sorry, this is, you know, it's difficult. It's difficult work, you know, but there is a solution. This is difficult work. So thank you for your honesty and your vulnerability, and for your willingness to go there, to explore your inner world, to step inside, which is the title of chapter 1 of my book. Fear of opening up to someone and becoming vulnerable. Yeah, I can relate to that, because we think it's not And maybe they won't like us, maybe they'll reject us, maybe we won't be good enough. Fear of embarrassment. Yeah, there's the more, I don't mention this actually on my fears page, but there's the more physical fears, about fears of feeling, of being physically seen. You know, is my body good enough? And when I was engaged in binge eating, compulsive overeating, and was a couple of stone heavier than I am now, I really didn't like my body. And I'm sure there was a fear there of being seen, being judged, of feeling unworthy. So these fears are, you know, there are lots of them, and you're not alone. You're not alone with them. And I suppose one thing to remember is the other party will probably have their fears too. And I remember a really poignant, moving moment in my relationship before my partner had proposed. We had a reasonably long engagement. I think it was 2 years. That's because we couldn't get our act together to organize the wedding that we wanted. But I remember lying on the sofa with him and feeling so scared because we'd agreed to marry, which for me was a massive deal. And I said to him, I voiced my fear. I said, I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm scared of committing. I'm scared of getting married. I'm scared of finding out that it's not for me. I'm scared I won't be able to stay. I'm scared of getting it wrong. And the most remarkable thing was that he being my husband, who isn't a man of many words when it comes to his emotions, he doesn't love sharing his feelings. He's only now learning the language to share his feelings. But the remarkable thing was that he said, I'm scared too. I'm scared too. And you know, we're all scared. We're all scared. So the key is to not allow our fears to block us from fully living our lives in all areas, and especially in this area. So I'm just going to go to my some of my fears. And a lot of them are ones that you've mentioned. So fear of abandonment, rejection, loss, fear of pain or hurt. So so fear of being abandoned, being left, fear of being rejected, fear of hurting, heartache, having my heart broken, fear of getting hurt, fear of making the wrong choice and feeling trapped. So feeling suffocated, feeling trapped, feeling like I can't get out. What if I make the wrong choice? I've always been chronically indecisive. And fear of being seen, of really being seen, and being seen as faulty, as not good enough, as not worthy, that there's something wrong with me. And, you know, I've put shame in brackets there because that comes from my shame. So fear of being seen as not good enough. So I'm going to come back to that. What I'd like you to do now is just have a think. And again, this is a whistle-stop tour through the topic of patterns and fears. But I'd like you to have a little think. Pick a couple of your top fears and connect those fears to experiences in your life. So what are the roots of those fears? Where do those fears come from? When did you first feel that fear? That's a clue to where it comes from. When did you first feel that fear? Again, you might want to place your hand on your heart, close your eyes. Now, this is quite deep, so you might want to take this away and do it after the webinar. You might want to do it on your own, but where did those fears come from? So please do share in the box privately or with me, privately or with the group. Where did your fears come from? So somebody says that their parents always argued incessantly and then they broke up. So naturally, our fear is that that will happen to us too. So we fear that we will repeat the same mistakes. So we see what we see when we're growing up, and that is our benchmark for judging how things will go, and then we fear that's going to happen to us. And you know, if that didn't look like a happy relationship, then we're not going to want to enter into a relationship. Parents always argued incessantly and then broke up. Sorry, I've just read that one. Someone left me after nearly 4 years, completely unexpectedly, without any discussion. So, gosh, that's a shock. That's hard. That hurts. That's going to bring up all manner of feelings. There's something wrong with me. What have I done wrong? Am I not good enough? It's going to bring up a lot of hurt, a lot of rejection, a lot of pain. You know what that brought up for you. You know how much that hurt. Fear of being taken advantage of, and you know, have a think of where that comes from. When were you first taken advantage of? Where does that come from? And fear of abandonment as a child. Somebody says their parent died at a really early age, and we assume that that will always happen. And gosh, I am, you know, that's quite moving for me to read, because I've been married 6 months, and I got in touch recently with a really deep fear that my husband would die. And, you know, he was having some reasonably routine medical investigation, but connected to something that my dad suffered with and something that caused him to die. And I absolutely connected the two. And I went into trauma about that. I thought, I've been married 6 months and I'm going to lose my husband. And it was so visceral, that feeling, you know, because it connected me to all the other losses of a male in my life. So, you know, I think the loss around my dad started when I was a very young girl, because I couldn't connect with him and he couldn't connect with me, or I didn't feel his connection. And then my parents divorced and my dad moved out, and then my dad remarried, which was a real shock. It wasn't handled very well. And then my dad died. And so my experience of being with a man is painful, and they die. So, you know, these fears, they're real because they come from a real place. But the problem is when our past impacts our future, our present and future, to such a degree that we don't allow ourselves the true joys of life and the true, you know, the miracles that come from being in a relationship. So someone says that they got validation from caring for others as a young carer, but resenting the parent they needed to care for. So that sets us up to imagine that a relationship involves us caring for someone, and it's not fun and it's suffocating and we don't want to be in it. And I can absolutely relate to that too. You know, from my relationship with my early caregivers, I thought that love equaled suffocation, feeling trapped, not feeling free, not having freedom. And it was the last thing that I wanted. I didn't want love. I didn't want relationship, because I thought it would trap me. And then somebody shares about being very unhappy in a relationship and feeling completely trapped and not being able to get out. And then we think that's going to happen again. And somebody says their parents broke up before they remember, so that no healthy role models of a good relationship. And this is a problem for many of us. We haven't had a healthy role model of a marriage or a relationship that looked fun, that looked free, that looked joyful. And I hadn't had that. I didn't have that. And I thought that a relationship would be suffocating, that I'd be trapped, that I wouldn't be free. And I have to say, the opposite is true. I have so much laughter, fun, and joy in my relationship. I do feel free. You know, we holiday together and we're planning our breaks apart as well, because I have a need to go on wonderful, uplifting holidays with just women, and he needs to go snowboarding with men. So, you know, we have our freedom to do those things. So there is freedom. There can be freedom in a relationship. There can be joy and laughter, and yeah. So these are our fears, and yeah, you know, they come from our real experience. But often those experiences that we experienced, they happen very, very young in our lives. And so the memory of them is deeply rooted. It's sort of fixed in our subconscious. And what it does is it creates a trauma response in us, in our daily lives. So, these are quite big terms, and, this is a short webinar. So I'm not going to go too deeply into this. You're welcome to explore my courses and working with me on a deeper level. But, we live with the traumatic memory of those things because they happened often when we were young, or they were so significant that they are scarred. We are scarred from them. And then we live our life as though they were going to happen again. And when we come close to love, to relationship, then we just remember, that memory triggers, and we remember what happened last time. We think we don't want to go there. But there is a solution to this. There is a solution, and you're doing it right now. So let me just reassure you that coming on this webinar and being open to doing this work, and especially sharing in the chat box and sharing some of your, some of your feelings, and that is really significant, and it means you're absolutely on the right track. So your fears are deep rooted. And after this webinar, you can go away and you can think more about where your fears come from. But what I'd like you to do, you have your fears and your patterns. Hopefully you've written them in your notebook as well. And you might have a column of patterns, and you might have a column of fears, or you might have one page to the next page. And I'd like you to connect them. So I'd like you to see. So if you're across the page, you could draw a line. So this is my pattern. I am always drawn to unavailable men. And this is my fear of abandonment and rejection. So if I am always drawn to unavailable men, then this fear will never come true because they're not available to me. They will abandon me first. They will reject me first. They won't commit to me. So in order to keep myself safe from fear, from pain, from hurt, from abandonment and rejection, I can keep dating unavailable men. It's really convenient. So connect up your fears with your patterns. Now, again, I'm going to be carrying on, so there's not a huge amount of time, but I just want you to be aware of that. This is a really great awareness raising tool. So how do your patterns connect to your fears, and how do your fears drive your patterns? So have a think about that, and just write that down. Draw a little wiggly line between the two, or just become aware of that somehow. So how do we change all this? Well, again, whistle stop tour, but I'll give you some tips now, and then do stay on if you'd like to hear more about the deeper programs that I have. So I've got a solution in the 3 A's. Awareness, as much awareness as possible, layer after layer. So imagine that you are peeling an onion and you keep peeling off the layers. Often we cry when we peel an onion, so we might need to cry. We peel off the layers and we get as much awareness as possible. So we see, we do more exploration, like what are my patterns? What are my fears? How are they connected? And we really see this. We see the connection. We keep doing this work. We explore this further. You could do the questions in my book. So each chapter comes with a section around questions to explore your own issues. You could work with me in a different way, take my course and so forth. I'll talk about that in a moment. Or you might want to work with someone else. But awareness is so important. Awareness is really important. Acceptance. So we need to accept ourselves. First of all, we need to accept and love ourselves as much as possible. So that takes me back to the Healthy Foundations webinar, which hopefully you've watched, or I'll send you the link to. So that is about accepting and loving ourselves, believing that we are good enough, believing that we are enough, believing that we are worthy of love, raising our self-esteem and self-confidence. So then those people who come into our lives who aren't worthy of us, we're not going to say yes. We're just going to walk away. but also accepting that we will make mistakes. So if we can make mistakes that don't bring too much pain and hurt to us or to other people, and we do that by being aware and by doing this, you know, with people to support us. So making mistakes, and we learn by doing. So I used to think that I needed to do, you know, 50 years of personal development and therapy, and then go and sit on a mountaintop in Tibet and meditate for another 10 years before I would be ready well enough to enter into a relationship. The problem is, you know, I could get all zen and all, you know, balanced and grounded, but what will happen is, as soon as I get close to somebody who I fancy, everything will go haywire, and I'll, you know, I'll drop all my healthy, everything that I've learned, and I'll just break all my boundaries and all my patterns. So we need practice. We do need the grounding. We need to do the healthy foundational work, which is why my first How to Fall in Love course is called Laying Your Healthy Foundations. So we need to do that. And then we need to practice. So we need to go dating with healthy boundaries, taking care of ourselves. So if you haven't been out there for a long time, first do your foundational work, get your self-esteem higher, and your self-confidence and your self-worth and the way you value yourself. Practice healthy habits, build your well-being, and I have lots of resources for that. And then go out there and practice safely, practice dating. And the third A is accountability. We can't do this alone. We need to get as much support as possible. So all the healing that I have done over the past 17 years, you know, the key parts of my healing have been in groups or in an accountability relationship with someone. So, you know, I have healed from binge eating, from binge drinking, from overworking, not quite healed yet, still a work in progress, and from dysfunctional relationship patterns. And I have done that in groups or with accountability buddies, with fellows, with friends, with coaches, with therapists. So I have not done it on my own. And, you know, when we are sort of fiercely independent, capable, confident, brilliant women and men in many areas of our lives, it's very difficult for us to ask for help or accept help. That was me, but I got to my knees and I needed help, and I accepted it, and I became vulnerable. So awareness, acceptance, and accountability. So how are you going to raise your awareness? What steps can you take in the next week, in the next month, to raise your self-awareness? You might already be doing it. You might want to have another look at my book if you've read it already, or have a look at it for the first time. You might want to find out about doing some of my courses or working with me. You might want to work with another coach or a therapist or a counselor. You might want to do some journaling. You might want to commit to doing meditation and journaling every day, just to get your awareness up. So what can you commit to in the next week or month? So 3 actions. Think of 3 actions you can take to build your awareness. If you can't think of 3, start with 1. Acceptance. So how are you going to be more accepting of yourself? How are you going to be more accepting of yourself? How can you build your sense of self-acceptance? And how are you going to nudge yourself to know that it's okay to make mistakes and to go out there and to try? Now, this will look different for everyone. You might want to, you might just want to try something new. You know, I was on a dry ski slope yesterday. I'm not very good at skiing. My husband absolutely loves snowboarding. He wants to go on holiday. I am not very good at it. But I was learning yesterday. I've been 3 or 4 times and I am getting better. I don't love it, but I'm learning, and I really enjoyed learning. So it doesn't have to be about dating necessarily. You could find an area of your life where you're going to allow yourself to make a mistake, where you're going to permit yourself to be a little less than perfect. So accept yourself and accept that you'll make mistakes, and go out there and make some. What area are you going to do that in? And how are you going to find your accountability? Who is going to support you? Now, it could be your best friend. It could be my book to start with, but I suggest a human being. It could be through doing some coaching or taking my course, one of my courses, coming on one of my retreats. Or it could be by working with someone else. Maybe you're already in therapy or counseling. So have a think about accountability. We can't do this alone. How can you get support? So I'm just going to move on. Who's supporting you? Who is supporting you? You might want to jot down in your notebook the 4 people or ways in which you are being supported. I'm running a little bit over time, so please bear with me. Hope you can stay. You might want to have a think about how you can be supported. Who's supporting you? So I'm just going to move on to this fantastic photo. So I just want to talk about the power of group work. So as I say, I've done so much of my healing in groups. There is so much power in group work. We learn from each other. So, the experience is doubled or tripled or quadrupled because we learn from each other. We learn from others' experiences, from others' mistakes, from others' learnings. This photo was taken on my love retreat in Turkey in October 2019. We'll be going back in October 2020. So there's a real power in group work, and there's a real joy in group work, as you can see from the next picture. The healing power of group work. So I would encourage you to think about who is supporting you. So I'm just going to talk now. I'm just going to do a quick recap. So we have explored our fears. I'll start with our patterns. We have listed our patterns, some of them, and you might want to go away and you might want to list some more of them. We have identified some of our key fears, that block us from healthy and happy relationships. We have looked at where those fears come from. How deep rooted are they? What is the origin of that fear? We have connected our patterns and our fears. So we've seen that our fears drive our patterns, and our patterns are impacted by our fears. And as long as we have those fears, or as long as we allow those fears to drive our lives, that we'll continue in those patterns. So we don't need to get rid of our fear, because that's impossible. We need to learn to walk through our fear. And I talked about, part of the solution. I haven't got enough time to keep talking in this webinar, but part of the solution is awareness, acceptance, self-acceptance, and acceptance that you might get it wrong and you might need to make some mistakes, but you can manage the risk by setting healthy boundaries, and accountability. So you might need support. You might need some group work. So I'm going to tell you very briefly now a little bit about some of the programs I've got going in the next weeks, months, and then we're going to do a Q&A, and then anyone who wants to stay on is very welcome, and I'm going to explain a little more about these programs. So I have my How to Fall in Love small group course that starts on January the 20th, just for women. Apologies to the men. There are more men wanting to work with me, but I haven't got a course or a retreat for you yet, but I'll have a mixed one. So small group course for a maximum of 10 women. And if you want to find out more about that, I'll explain more in a moment after the questions. But that course is the course that the women who I quoted from at the beginning of this webinar, who are all now in relationships, they have all done that course or some coaching with me. So that includes one-to-one and group coaching. I have my How to Fall in Love Dorset retreat, February the 28th to March the 2nd. And I have that's nearly full. Well, I've got 4 places left. So find out about that if that's of interest. I'll put the links in the chat, and I will also send this PowerPoint around. Got my love retreat in Turkey. If you want to cover yourself in mud and do yoga, you don't have to cover yourself in mud. We do have daily yoga. It's a beautiful restorative yoga. It's really amazing. And I have one-to-one coaching. So I'm just going to see, yeah, game-changing work. My experience of working with Catherine has been really profound. She is very, very good at what she does. We've got to the bottom of stuff that I've never been able to understand before. So that is really important to me, that testimonial from Rachel, because I know many of us, you know, there's so many people competing for your attention and your money, but I'm really honoured that she has said that we got to the bottom of stuff that we've never been able to understand before. And Nina says that Catherine's course, my How to Fall in Love course, is exceptional. I bring back hope to your life, and you feel like I genuinely care. And I hope that comes across in this webinar, because I do genuinely care. Thinking about you even during out of office hours. So I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm just going to actually I'm going to share something else with you, just very briefly, just give you a quick overview of these courses. So this is Are You Ready to Find Love? The next 5-week group course starts January the 20th. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. I have all these courses. Don't worry about the number of lessons, because the way the system is works, it counts hello, it's Wednesday as a lesson. That's why there are so many lessons. And this is on special offer right now. This is the step 1 of the big group course. So if you want to try it out, you can do that. And just to show you a couple of pictures, that's my love retreat. You've already seen that. And this is Turkey. Amazing. We had such a great time. And I have a community of women, secret Facebook group, and I offer coaching in that community as well. And just to let you know that I have a 2020 vision webinar on Tuesday. So I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment. We're going to do some questions now, and then if you have any, and if you have any questions, please let me know. And then I'm just going to explain a little bit more about those things that I've got on offer. And I'm also going to offer, show you how you can fix a half-hour free discovery call with me. So I've got some slots. I've cleared some spaces for this coming week, so that you can find out more, so that you can talk through how to change your patterns and challenge your fears, and find out more about whether you might want to do to work with me in any way, either now or in the future. So at the end of the Q&A, I'll show you how you can sign up for one of my free discovery calls. But does anyone have any questions for me? I'll try my best to answer them. Now you can type them in the chat, or you can to me, or you can unmute yourself and say hello, on the understanding that your question will be recorded. So any questions? So there's a question about the course. Somebody's saying they can't do the group calls, which are on Mondays. Yes, I am running the course again later in the year. It will be probably that one. I'll get back to you. If you just type your surname privately, and then I'll get back to you with details of when the next course is running. The group calls are currently set for Monday, on the course are currently set for Monday at 5:30. There is a possibility that there could be some flexibility there. It depends on everyone's availability. But for now, they're set for Monday at 5:30. Possibility of doing them on Wednesday at 6. Okay, great. I'll take a note of that. So I'll let you know about the course. Any other questions? I'm just going to drink my cold tea. If not, I'll carry on talking. And if you think of any questions as you go along, please let me know. I'm just going to tell you, for those of you who are still on, a little bit more about the courses and how you can book a free discovery call. By the way, I hope this has been helpful. If you'd like to type in the box and tell me that it has, that would be really amazing. Because standing here in my office and looking into a computer, you know, that's why I love working with people face to face on Zoom video or in the groups and so forth, because I love to hear back from you. So if this has been useful, feel free to say so. Now I'm just going to share again and show you. Okay, is that working? Yeah. Okay, someone's just grabbed my book again off the bookshelf to reread. Thanks. Yeah, please do that. So this course, thank you for telling me that it was really helpful. So this course, it starts January the 20th, and it is a 5-week course. It involves a secret private Facebook group for the women who are taking the course, where there's loads of resources and accountability, mutual support and cheerleading, and where I'll do some extra live videos. There is a one-to-one call with me of an hour, and there is also 6 group coaching calls. Now they are currently on Mondays at 5:30, but there might be flexibility depending on what everybody wants. I currently have a few people signed up, and it's just about getting a time and a time that works for everyone, which is quite tricky. So I have to pick something and see how that goes. Now, this course is really great value, and I know it's January and we are a little low on funds. So if you are struggling and you'd like to talk to me about ways to pay, or if you're struggling to pay, please give me a shout. Drop me an email, Catherine@catherinebaldwin.com. Yeah, please give me a shout about that. I'm going to come back to your questions and your comments in a moment. I'll just carry on with my flow, but thank you for those. So it's really great value because it includes a one-to-one with me, 6 group coaching calls. And as I said, some of the women who've done this course are now in relationships. So I believe that that is really valuable. It's a course runs on video. You receive a number of videos every morning inviting you to walk through some of these exercises. I'll just show you this one now. Very briefly, you'll see me in front of the film downstairs. So, and there's exercises and PDFs, and there's great momentum in this course. And I believe it is game-changing work. You can see week 1, and there's lots to do. Don't get daunted, because these are actually quite small videos and exercises. So we build our healthy foundations. We step inside and build our healthy foundations. We strengthen our core, so we build our self-esteem and self-confidence. We identify our unhealthy patterns. We do things differently, so we change our patterns and we let go of lost loves. So let me know if that's of interest. And then these are my other courses. So you can take that course as a self-paced version. That means without the group. Now you've heard me talk about the power of the group, but that can be taken without the group as a self-paced version if your funds are low. And then, or if you just like to take it in your own time. And then I have this, that's the group course. I have a follow-on course, which is Date with Courage, Clarity and Confidence. And that is starting in March. So if you're interested in that, if you take the first one, there's a discount off the second one. So have a think about that. And this is the try before you buy, really, although there is a small cost, but this is week 1, step 1 of the bigger course. So you could try that out and see if it's for you. You won't get all the benefits of the group and the group coaching and the one-to-one and so forth, but it might be worth looking at. I talked you through my Dorset Love Retreat, February the 28th. Beautiful venue we've got this time. It's a new venue, and 9 women, and game changing. We do some really transformational work, and we go to the beach. And then Turkey happens in October, and again, there are limited places on this retreat holiday with fantastic yoga, wonderful boat trips, loads of fun. And I can't stop smiling when I talk about this. I mean, I love everything that I do. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't, but I can't stop smiling when I talk about this. As you can see from this photo, I'm pretty happy. We had a lot of fun, a lot of laughter, and we did game-changing work in the sunshine in Turkey. So if you're interested, I would love you to come. This is my Love Ladies community. So there's a small monthly fee. If you'd like to join us, very small community right now. And, you know, we build bonds with each other, and the monthly fee is 25, but it's currently at £20 a month if you'd like to join. So it's at 25 or £20 a month, and there's a discount if you pay up front. And then, yeah, just to let you know about my webinars, Create Your 2020 Vision and Design Your Dream Decade. This has a workbook attached to it. So if you don't have that, you just need to sign there, or you should have it in your email if you're on my list. And then there's another one on, there's another love webinar on, what day? On Thursday at 1 o'clock, which I can probably find on my homepage. It's called Change Your Dating Dynamic. You can find them all here, How to Fall in Love. And that's the foundations, and there's your Change Your Dating Dynamic. So we'll be talking about different things than tonight. How to date with a positive mindset, how to set healthy boundaries, not walls, for dating, so that you respect yourself, how to let go of unrealistic expectations while never accepting less than you deserve, and how to create time and space for love in your hectic life, how to meet eligible dates offline as well as on, which is always one of the questions that a lot of people ask me. So there's some comments here. Thank you, it's been great. I've realized something new, and I think that I'll try to say more to myself about my feelings and needs, and hopefully we'll be able to share them more with others further down the line. So there's a question as to whether my courses are gay affirmative. They are open to straight, gay, bisexual, they're open to all, to everyone. Gay affirmative, now I'm not quite sure I quite understand what that expression means, so I don't want to get it wrong, but in my videos and in my PDFs, I try as much as possible to talk about you know, people of all genders who are attracted to people of the same gender or different gender or both. So I tried to be as inclusive as possible. My book, as I say at the very beginning of my book, it was, you know, I wrote my book very quickly and I really wanted it out there. So the language is very much female, finding male attractive. And that was because it was going to be so time consuming to keep changing all the pronouns and so forth. So I do apologize about that at the beginning of the book. But yes, I try to be really inclusive in all my work and to affirm everyone's sexual preference. So I hope that answers that. But please come back to me if it doesn't, and drop me an email separately, and I'm happy to discuss this. Oh, I forgot to say before I come to your questions, this is how to, I'll put this in the link. I'll put this here now to everyone. This is how to book a discovery call with me in the next week. If you'd like to do that, you can book a call at any time, but I have some specific slots that are available through this calendar this coming week. And I'll just put some of these links in for you. This is the group course, Laying the Foundations. Try and make it easy for you. And this is the page with all the courses. And then I wanted to show you my, where am I? My love retreat, Dorset. That is happening again in May. So the May retreat is level 2, hopefully for women who have already done a course with me, or a group with me, or have been on a retreat already, or have really delved into my book, so that they feel like they've got reasonable foundations. And then I just want to put Turkey in as well. Love Ladies is here. This is just in case anyone wants to, oops, sorry. Okay, let me just, I'll come back to that question in a moment. Let me just put these in to everyone. It's funny, when someone types something to me directly, then my message directly goes back to them. So I just want to check everything's there. And then this webinar for Thursday, if you're on my list, if you got news of this webinar, you will get that. And then the 2020 vision, which I've lost, but that's there. So I think I've told you everything and given you all the links. So let me just go back. So somebody asks if the videos in the course are subtitled, as she has hearing loss. Well, I'm sorry to say that I haven't managed to do that yet. I have now got a subtitling tool, and I am going to start subtitling my videos, but that's a really important point, and I'm sorry that they're not. And it would be a huge amount of work in a short time for me to make that happen, because I need to re-edit them all and reload them all. But that is something I will definitely look at in the future. So I apologize about that. I think somebody's asking about the timing on my book an appointment with me. So I think my appointment schedule is set to UK time. I think my first option, 12:30. Yeah, I think that's UK time. But without looking myself, how can I? I'll drop you an email, or drop me one. Book in if you like, and if there's a problem, we'll sort it out. And somebody said, my first fear overcome, I've joined the webinar. So yeah, and yeah, needing to apply some of the learning from the course. So somebody has done the course already, and often we need refreshers and reminders, and yeah, we need to keep reminding ourselves. So have I answered and addressed all your questions? Good insight into patterns and fears, very useful, thank you. So I am just gonna, yeah, if you'd like to book a call with me, here's the link again. And I've noticed that I've gone over time, so I'm gonna start wrapping up. You will receive the recording. And so if you want to keep reminding yourself, then watch this every 3 months. The PowerPoint will also come around, which has the links in. So yeah, if you want to ask me any questions, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch the recording off. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to switch the recording off. So thanks everyone. I'm just going to stop recording.